This is episode number 500. No, 405. Oh my god. Forms and functionality.
La la la.
Brought to you by us over at WPwatercooler. Go to WPwatercooler.com/store.
It's too late for Halloween.
And our friends over at InMotion Hosting. Check them out over at InMotion Hosting for 24/7 support and affordable prices. Learn how you can launch their website in minutes at InMotionHosting.com. I'm Jason Tucker. You can find me at Jason Tucker on the Twitters.
I'm Steve Zehngut. I'm the founder of Zeek Interactive, and I run the OC WordPress meetup sometimes.
Occasionally. Hi, I'm Say Reed, and I make WordPress, teach WordPress, preach WordPress, lament WordPress sometimes at Say Reed Media on all the things.
And it's your boy Jason Cosper, aka Fat Mellow Mike, back at it again on the world's most influential WordPress podcast.
Oh yeah!
You can go and follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. And while you're there, leave us a review.
Listen.
And go hang out with us in Discord. Go to WPwatercooler.com/Discord, which I hear Discord is just Slack, but for gaming.
I don't know what it is because I never go on there.
Yeah, I don't need. My kids use it.
Yep, my kids use it too.
Yeah.
I'm hip.
Yep.
I considered getting a TikTok this weekend, that was to learn how to cut my hair.
To cut your own hair?
Yeah, I was like, isn't that where all the hair tutorials are these days?
Sure.
I don't know. I didn't do it. I didn't pull the trigger.
I learned to cut my hair out of Time Life books.
I use a Flowbee.
It sucks at it.
Speaking of technology.
What are we talking about today, Jason?
So we're going to be talking about forms and functionality. We're Say's being clever with the words as usual.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, that's right.
That's what I'm doing. We haven't visited with our friend the Forms lately. our friend and partner. I've been working with Forms a lot lately, just building a lot of applications, a lot of data pipelines. And I actually really love Forms, but I thought it was a good time to talk about it because there's so...
Speaking of talking...
Sorry.
Hello, Forms? It's so good to have you here with us today.
It's Ninja Forms on the phone.
Hey, Ninja Forms. Sorry. Gravity Forms wants to speak to you.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just was, Forms have both not changed a lot and changed a lot. There's been a lot of core functionality that doesn't really need to change in a form. But There's all this new UI happening with Gutenberg and all of the boxes and the blocks on the editor end and on the front the block end, the page end, the embed end. Anyway, so I just wanted to talk about it and see where everyone was at with their form love these days. That's all. What are you building forms out of? And what are you building?
What platform? What form plugin am I using? Is that what you're asking?
Well,
is that one of the questions?
Basically. You're not going to answer it?
That was the question or not? I asked my own question, so I'll answer it. Ninja Forms.
Still? Yeah. I can't get there.
Why?
I like well, first of all, their webpage is really hard to process. Their feature.
Okay.
Look, I know that's not a reason to choose something that's serious book by its cover thing, but it's hard to compare features when some of the features are, when they're not. So it doesn't seem like there's feature parity, and the form plugins are really structured differently. Like a lot of different things are included in different packages, so it's really hard to evaluate across plugin.
I think I use it because it's probably the easiest to understand UI for my clients, but it's also great from a developer standpoint. It's really easy from a developer standpoint. But in fairness, the three licenses I own are Ninja Forms, WP Forms, and Gravity Forms.
Okay, but so When you say,
and I have projects on all three.
Yeah. When you say, though, that it's the easiest from the developer standpoint, are you talking about API integration? What are you talking about specifically?
Yes. Mostly I'm talking about I'm talking about integrations with hooks and filters, things like that. The extensibility. Was that funny?
Nope.
You smiled. Okay. But yes,
it was to me, but let's just go right over that.
Absolutely. API integration is definitely a big piece of it. But most of the third-party systems that you're going to want to connect with are already integrated in all three of those packages that I just mentioned, right? If you're talking about Activecampaign or MailChimp or any of the biggies, they're already there on all three of those form plugins, and they're already well integrated.
And they're also integrated with the poor man's API. Anyone?
What would that be? SneakerNet?
Contact Form 7?
Zapier.
Zapier.
The poor man's API.
It's like, okay. Yeah. And
they've got it's actually really interesting, their different hooks, because Ninja Forms has its own plugin that you have to get and you have to pay for in order to integrate with
Let's break that down for a second. The poor man's API, because Zapier isn't really the poor man's API once you start using it.
Oh,
right?
I meant more like the code.
I get it. It's a quick way to integrate, but it becomes expensive very quickly if you scale.
Yeah, I meant more like.
I get it. I know. I just wanted to clarify that. Yes, programming wise, it's drag and drop. You just drag and drop, and you're done.
Total no code.
Yes. Yeah, no code, but definitely yes pay, because you have to pay for integrations at every level, and you have to pay for the number of processes that are going through. So there's definitely a lot of poor man's API is not the right one, but I'm gonna figure out what it should be called.
Quick.
Something like
quick.
A turnkey API.
Yeah.
Okay, but that doesn't.
But again, but let's compare those, because if you talk, let's say you're integrating with something like Activecampaign, which is a common one. It's a common request I get. It's a common request I get from my clients, right? Most of my clients use Activecampaign these days. Yes. And all the major form plugins just have an API, have an Activecampaign integration. Right. No code on my part, right? We just have to buy the license, right? I'd rather buy that license once and own it, or pay my yearly fee for that license and know what my hard cost is, rather than paying Zapier, however you want to pronounce it.
Why
or
do they name it something that no one will ever be able to pronounce?
Well, their tagline is "makes you happier." So as long as you say Zapier, then it's "make you happier."
Oh, that's actually super handy.
It's pronounced as it's a zap. You're creating zaps, so it's Zapier.
Okay, well,
you're not zaping.
Yes.
Well, I was going with the French Zapier.
But ultimately, if you build something on Zapier and you scale, you're going to pay, because you're paying by the number of times you use it.
But it also it can be a great link for just getting started, like before proof of concept, or to get some basic stuff set up, and then you can always do a custom thing once you have seen how the workflow works. In my case, I'm doing a lot of integration with Salesforce. So it's more about Salesforce and how the clients are using data on Salesforce. Why is that funny?
No, because I made your face about the face you made about Activecampaign. For those of you who are listening, Say made a throw up face when I said Activecampaign. I made a worse throw up face when she said Salesforce.
A worse throw up face. Wait.
All the bad words are being used.
I will also make a throw up face when we talk about Salesforce. Because it's a nightmare, but it is really well marketed, especially to nonprofits. And so a lot of them are in the ecosystem. And the real problem I've found is actually not at all collecting the data, because as you said, most of the form plugins that are out there are doing the job, and they're doing it well. But it's where that data is ending up and how that data is being used that is more complicated for the client to process. So I end up adjusting a lot of the time. They're like, oh, wait, we actually need this information, or, oh, we want to change our minds and need this information. So I think that, it's easy on the WordPress side. more difficult on the wherever that data is landing side.
But I think the overall what you bring up here is really important to think about, because whatever form plugin you put in place, your data ultimately is not going to reside in WordPress.
Right.
It's useless really if it's residing in WordPress.
It's made to be taken somewhere.
Unless you're writing a blog post. It's
supposed to be portable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, well, and it kind of the forms really do create the portals, right? Like the transferring of data. It's like Mike TV and Willy Wonka. The transferring of data from the person behind the screen, pixelating all that information and getting it over here to the whatever the business or organization is. And I mean, that is really, I would say, one of the most significant things you can do on a website, or one of the fundamental things people are doing on websites is taking in, that's a sentence.
Yeah. Wow.
So I missed the name, but the fact that you identified as a noob and said that you're using Contact Form 7 makes a lot of sense.
Let's say we've gone 13 minutes without mentioning Contact Form 7.
Why did we have to mention
on purpose?
It at all?
Yeah, we didn't.
One more time and that thing gets installed on all of our websites, okay? You said it twice.
Is it like Beetlejuice?
It just automatically appears on your websites. I actually have a client whose website I've been rebuilding for like 2 years. It's been a nightmare. The good ones take time, you know? But they had their previous developer installed Contact Form 7 and a plugin for Contact Form 7 that kept all of those entries accessible within the admin. So that's like GDPR.
GDPR.
I was like, the thing where you can't take people's data, that one. It is just basically a nightmare. Everyone's data was just like right there. They're like, here it is. We're going to install a plugin to make it easier to get this information that you shouldn't be storing on your server at all.
I got to tell you, we knock Contact Form 7 all the time on this show. I can't.
We do.
If we went back and counted, right, it would be a lot.
I mean, it's like the redheaded stepchild. Like you know.
It's a free plugin. It does the job for a lot of people. And I got to tell you, I looked at it recently because I have a client that's using it. It's actually not horrible. Right?
It's not all markup language anymore.
It's not horrible, right? The interface has gotten pretty good, but I would think at some point they'd start calling it Contact Form 8. Like, haven't they?
I was just about to say that. Like, what is the 7
when do they go to the next version?
Did like someone just really like that number? Like, what is the 7? I've never understood it.
Yeah, and how bad was Contact Form 6?
I mean, Apple did it. They got out of OS 10. They can get to 11. It's okay. You can.
My problem with Contact Form 7 is ultimately you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Well, I think if it depends on, like with everything, what are you using for? If it's just for a contact form on your contact page, and you just want people to send, I really need a shirt with that on it.
I got to tell you, I thought it was just for contact forms. It's actually not. If you install it and you look at it, it does a lot more than that now. It's grown up a little bit. Yeah, okay, well, I got to give it some props because it's not awful.
Regardless of whether it's Contact Form 7 or Gravity Forms, which doesn't have a free version at all, or Ninja Forms, which straddles that half free but not
free version, and you pay for add-ons.
Yeah, which they don't advertise on their website, by the way, which I thought was interesting. They're like, if you came here and you're willing to pay, we're not going to tell you otherwise.
That it's free.
Yeah. So I think the interesting thing is, what are the myriad uses of forms have really expanded. I think one of the most interesting applications of a form plugin right now that I know Gravity Forms is really hyping is e-commerce. Like not a huge shopping cart, not anything, just a really simple Stripe or PayPal add-on that allows the form to become essentially your shopping cart, which is really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, but if you think about it, a simple transaction is just a form with a credit card field.
Right.
That's what that's doing is, and again, they all three packages, all three of those premium packages that I mentioned have the same stuff. You can add an e-commerce field and take, Stripe or PayPal, for instance, right? Or authorize.net. With basically what you're setting up is a very simple checkout without a shopping cart.
Right. So that, has a lot of uses.
Cosper's shaking his head, and I want to hear what he has to say here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, please.
No,
they're coming for WooCommerce. That's what I'm saying.
This has kind of been making me think that friend of the show, Helen Hosandi, says and has said, I've been scrambling to find it, which is why I've been so quiet. But I feel like I've heard her say in a talk that almost every web page that WordPress outputs is just some version of a form. You have a blog post with, you fill in form data if you want to leave a comment. You, with WooCommerce or with any sort of e-commerce, you click submit, add the thing to cart, and it's forms all the way down.
Yeah,
so
I used to call when I was doing my introduction to WordPress classes, I used to call WordPress an FDI. And then everyone would be like, what's an FDI? I'd say, it's a fancy data inputter. That's what it is. It's essentially what it is, which is why, for example, advanced custom fields is so integral to the extensibility of WordPress, simply because it adds more of the fields, which is literally the data transference, which is all of what we're talking about here. Like it's everything that WordPress is: data into the database and data out of the database. So the forms really at their core level are just other ways to get data. It's just, so there's all just a big fancy data collector.
So what's the sales?
That Mark Zuckerberg.
What's the sales?
That's so meta
for each one of these then. Why would you pick one over the other, sort of thing? Like Steve was talking about, he uses Gravity Forms, uses Ninja Forms, and you use
WP Forms.
Oh, WP Forms.
So you can't use Well, I won't use WP Forms because they throw too much stuff on the admin.
Wait, they boot an operating system when you go into the.
Yeah, it's like they're ruining their own product. I can't handle it.
I think the first thing is ease of use, right? On the admin side, right? How easy is it to set up a form? What I like about Ninja Forms is, and WP Forms does this as well, but it kind of holds your hand as you go through. You click new form, and it says what kind of form are you setting up, and so it sort of leads you through, and you say, oh, I'm setting up a contact form, and then it just sort of puts those. It's like kind of guess.
No idea what information I need to collect in a contact form, please.
I understand that. I'm just using that as an example, but Gravity Forms doesn't do that. And so that saves you, it kind of saves you a step and saves you some of the work, right? But then just the layout process is really easy to do. And I think the design tools that are in Ninja Forms, especially when you're getting into some of the ways you can kind of put fields side by side and move fields around are really easy to do. And so UI, I think, is number one. Documentation, I think, is number two, right? So if I can't figure something out, how easy is it to find out that thing?
I would like to say that two types of documentation are important here. One, developer documentation, and two, basic instructional documentation. So you can just give that information to your client and say, read this, and it'll explain how to build a basic form, and won't scare people with with having a good separation of those two types of documentation is important.
But documentation also has to be kept up with the recent version of the plugins that are coming out. And again, I've found that Ninja Forms has done that pretty well. Again, I'm not knocking what the other two have done. They do a pretty good job of that as well. I've noticed that Ninja Forms kind of does a really good job of that. So, and then. I just think how often they keep their product up to date and especially their add-ons, right? So keeping the product up to date with new versions of WordPress is important, but keeping the add-ons up to date with the new versions of the integration of the software that's, like if Activecampaign does an update, that add-on needs to be updated. Yeah,
it just makes me tired to think about.
Now
all of that up.
That last one, I haven't found that anybody does that well. That's tough. That's really tough to keep up.
Well, that's a lot of tracking to do, like for all of those integrations. But you're already this is, I would say, a difficult time in the WordPress ecosystem for keeping products up to date, simply because things are changing really quickly and really fundamentally. So it's hard. And I would actually even say that a lot of third-party services like MailChimp, maybe Activecampaign, they're also going through a lot of upgrades in terms of like Submittable, for example, which is a form, an offsite form, data
SaaS
collector thing. Yeah,
SaaS form
that just underwent an entire upgrade with integrations and new APIs. So tech right now, I think everything is just turning over into kind of a more modern, platform.
And so what I found on the third one is as a developer, sometimes I'll find a bug not because the form has caused it, but because the third party has changed something and the form's no longer integrating. And I kind of rate the company based on how well they'd listen, right? And I found both Ninja Forms and WP Forms have been pretty responsive when I've said, hey, something has changed over here, right? You need to get it in your next version. I haven't found the same from Gravity Forms.
I mean, that's such a valuable feedback. That is such valuable feedback for those companies to be able to fix that, like to have users who are reporting that back, because it's so hard to test all of those integrations all the time. Like, what does that team even look like? Like, that's a lot of getting into different programs and going through it all the time. So to have a user who's in the field being able to report back is a big deal. I think you recently experienced that, Cosper, with the not form related, but with the Newspack update, right? Like you said it wasn't ready, or
I put up on Twitter that I basically am in the process of converting a bunch of classic editor posts to blocks. What I'm trying to do is test and see what a site built completely from blocks does versus what a site built entirely in classic editor does, like performance wise. So I needed a way, and I didn't want to work with a lot of these like test data setups have maybe 50 posts tops. Like I had built a site that had 4,000 some odd posts, a bunch of comments attached, different authors, etc. So I really wanted to be like thorough with it, and it wasn't converting. The Newspack content converter wasn't converting anything over to blocks because it looked like it basically hadn't been touched in 8 months. I'm sure that work had been done, but nothing in the Gutenberg repo had been updated for it. So I was like, okay, well, does anyone know of something that actually works? And within a few days, the Newspack team was like, oh crap, we pushed an update, and now it looks like I don't think it's because I complained about it online. I don't like to think I have that sort of power.
I mean, you are on the world's most influential WordPress podcast, so
this is true.
In the Friday from 11 to 11:30 block.
Yeah, I said world's most. Steve. World most.
Right. So in this half-hour block,
you mentioned blocks, and blocks is interesting because we've talked about this in the past, where like how there are new form plugins that have come out that will let you build the entire form in blocks. I don't know if we need that. Like, do we need that?
Well,
do we need a form editor
for layout purposes?
Maybe for layout purposes, but let me tell you, the events calendar is new, which I am a huge fan of and use on a lot of client sites. But their interpretation of build an event using blocks is literally to build the event piece by piece, like add a block for venue, add a block for time, add a block for dollars. And I'm like, I can't, why? So, I mean, you're kind of already using blocks with all the form builders. So building the form directly into Gutenberg, I guess, is visually better. But
could you save it as a block pattern?
The events thing?
Right.
Yeah, I believe so, but I don't think I had block patterns enabled on that site or something. But I haven't gone far enough down that road to figure it out. I was like, wow, this is a nightmare. I'm going to stop doing this right now.
Steve shared this one, and this is the one that I was talking about, is that idea of being able to use Gutenberg to actually drag out all of the form fields and stuff like that. I think I'm with you, Steve, in that being able to use this as a way to see how it's going to look on the page makes sense. Have you used this one yet?
I have. Actually, Cosper shared this.
Oh, Cosper was the one that shared it. Sorry.
I haven't used it yet. I know that this was basically part of the reason for us even wanting to talk about forms, is because the news that this WP Chill company that I had never heard of before had acquired this Gutenberg form plugin. And I think it's really interesting. I mean, I know we're in a phase of, especially now that full site editing is coming out, where companies and people are just Gutenberging all the things.
It's a verb now.
Yeah. So, but
they're getting Gutenberged. It's true.
Yeah.
Past tense.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense for me as far as like seeing it in the layout. It's been a minute since I've actually had to use any of the blocks for the other form plugins like Ninja Forms, Gravity Forms, etc. But in a lot of cases, I feel like it's like you just drag your form block into Gutenberg. You say, okay, my form goes here, but you don't see how it looks until you actually preview the page. That sucks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like the whole thing with the full site editing and the header and all of that. Like that's really where the full site editing is moving to. So this Forms plugin is doing that. And I would say that even though they've all updated their UIs recently, that's probably going to be coming, right, from Gravity Forms, Ninja Forms, because everything is going to front-end editing as opposed to having a separate field. Like
but
even
that's where
happening.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's where it gets complex. You have something like Gravity Forms and Ninja Forms that have had these products for years.
Right.
And you can't just all of a sudden go, hey, now we're blocks.
Right.
Now it's all Gutenberg. Now it's, people will just crap themselves over it.
WooCommerce hasn't hopped on board yet.
I think the thing about Gutenberg is that it is so, this is kind of funny. It's not just divisive in the community, but it really divides up the content, right? Like, so even when in a form, when you're making a form on just its own page, you're thinking about that form as its own entity, right? And you might use that form on a page or whatever, but when it goes on that page, it is its own thing. And when you start to break down each of the questions on a form into the actual page design, you start to think, well, you're gonna have a form up here and then a form, like is this form like scattered throughout the page? Like I mean, I don't know how this particular plugin does that, but I think it's a container within container. In terms of, is a form its own thing that you can then reuse on different pages, as opposed to, is it a piece of content? I think that's really or all the individual parts of it content. I think we're really redefining right now what is content in WordPress, because so many plugins and blocks and everything, Gutenberg blocks are like kind of content, or they're like bringing in all this dynamic content. So I think it's just really redefining what we're talking about in terms of how we interact with the data that we're putting in on the front end or the back end. It's really shifting.
Yeah. Maybe we just need AI that's going to fill out the forms for us, just like we're getting content written in AI.
We've got AI that's putting the form, that's filling in the form on the front end. So
right.
So, right, exactly. And we've got AI that
just
can
turn on the bots all around,
pull the data on the back end and do stuff with the data and then show it to you. So it's like, just like with everything, I guess, I think we're at a really transitional time with how we do this. A couple episodes ago, we were talking about even just how people search for, their media files or whatever it is. And I think we are just in such a transition, but not just in WordPress, but really technologically transitioning between a more linear type of functioning with our data and our tech versus a more like cloud ambiguous one. And I think
the everything bucket.
Yeah, the everything bucket or the metaverse.
please end this now.
With that,
thank you very much
for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. Leave us a comment down below if you want to tell us what form plugin you're using and how you're using it.
Tell us. We really want to know. That's not just a question. We're
curious. Unless it's contact form 7.
No. Tell us why you love that too. I want to know.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
Don't make Alex feel bad.
No, Alex, you're doing fine.
Yes.
All right, folks. Talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Go over to our website at WPwatercooler.com/subscribe to subscribe to this content. You can find us over on WP Watercooler podcast as well as Dev Branch. And we're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and YouTube. Talk to y'all later.